Hello, everyone, and welcome to the next episode of the Release to Rise podcast. I am your host, Kate Patra, and I'm going to give you a trigger warning for today because it's a concept that's a bit of a doozy. It's something that has profoundly changed my life and the way I interact with people and the way I see the world and my relationships and everything that happens, including the past half hour when I couldn't get my podcast equipment to work. And I'll explain why. This concept that I'm going to talk about today, and I'm going to give you guys examples from my own life and my friends' lives to really explain to you this whole idea of radical responsibility. And I give a trigger warning because it's not the easiest thing to hear. When I first heard about it, I think I was on a walk. I usually listen to podcasts on a walk. I was pissed. I was just mad about it. I was like, okay, I see it for this experience and this explanation or this example, but how does that apply to this? And how does it apply to that when that happened to me? I didn't plan that. I'm going to break it all down for you. I'm going to break it down in my own words, how I've experienced it, how I see my friends, clients, family experience it. And I'm going to explain it the way that I see it. So the reason you're listening to this, and if you are listening to this, if you are drawn to listen to this, if someone sent this to you, if this is somehow on your radar, it is not by accident. There are no coincidences. There's a reason that this podcast is in your life, this episode in particular. So, as uncomfortable as it is, and believe me, I know I still struggle with it sometimes, just keep an open mind and know that whether your conscious mind is on board with this or not, this is a very huge factor in our lives that we don't even understand is impacting our lives. Now, when I talk about radical responsibility, I mean, I have experiences every day. I experience things that push me to learn, to practice, to hone this whole concept of radical responsibility. And some days are easier than others, but every day I work on it up till the moment I hit record on this and it finally worked. I had to practice radical responsibility. I'll give you a backstory to it, but usually I set everything up, I hit record, I go. I set my little prayer and my intentions. I make sure we're protected in our energy. I hit record and we go. Well, I've made a special time out of my day to do this. The rest of the day is packed. I have a specific amount of time and all of a sudden, error, cannot record. And I got furious. But I found it so ironic and ended up laughing because I'm like, oh, this is an example of how I have to take radical responsibility for everything not working. That is started with my creator field. Because what happens is everything negative in our life and positive is our responsibility. It is because of us and our creator field. You cannot create something from the outside that isn't created inside first. Now I'll explain what the creator field is, and then we'll get into some examples, and hopefully this will click. Our creator field is our thoughts, our beliefs, our emotions, our aura, our actions, our electromagnetic field, our organs, our body. And it is responsible for shaping and instructing the behavior and the matter in our physical body and in our life. So circumstances, situations, events, people, places, things, all of that. Our creator field is responsible for all of that. Some of the things I do is to remove energy from that creator field, which then helps us bring in what we want. But regardless, our creator field is responsible for all of that, for better or worse. So whether you have a positive thing programmed in your creator field or a negative thing programmed in your creator field, either way, it is happening, whether you realize it or not. So think of the creator field as the blueprint to our life, or think of it as the movie script. If you have these holes in your creator field, these limiting beliefs, these trapped energies, these trapped emotions, the stuck energy, if you have that within your creator field, you hand this blueprint out, whether it's a positive role or a negative role. And then people reflect back to you and act out what is in their role, what is in the script that you've handed out to them. There are examples where creator field can really empower us And there are examples where a creator field can really negatively impact us. So think of if you had a hole in your creator field of I'm not worthy, how it can impact your life. You hand that script out of I'm not worthy to people, places, circumstances, situations, and events in your life. They mirror it back to you. Well, what might that look like? That looks like not getting the promotion you wanted. That looks like not getting recognized for your hard work when you're at work or even in your personal life. That can look like not having the quality relationships that you want, whether it's romantic, platonic, or otherwise. That can cause people to struggle to find the romantic love. It can cause people to have low self-love because they're not prioritizing themselves. Their self-love is low because they don't feel worthy of it. So a simple stuck energy or a stuck limiting belief within our creator field can impact us in a wide variety of ways. Now, on the flip side, we can get this to work to our advantage. If you have a positive program in your creator field, which is what we want, let's say your creator field's programmed to say, I'm magnetic, right? That's the energy that's within your field. That's the script you're handing out to everyone else. Okay. Person, people, places, situations, circumstances, and events in your life. You're handing out that script of I am magnetic. Well, guess what? You get a promotion. You might get a raise. You're valued and noticed and recognized for what you do at work or at home, in your relationships. You have better quality relationships. People are drawn to you. So let's say you're a business owner. People are drawn to you if you're magnetic, if you have that in your creator field. They want to know what's going on in your life. They want to know what you're offering. Your self-image raises because how you perceive yourself and how others perceive you are going to match. So when I am magnetic is programmed out there, you're going to feel that reflected back to you, and it's going to validate what you already know to be true. Point being that nothing can be created from the outside that isn't already created inside first. When we have these things in our creator field, we then become an energetic match for things to happen to us. It's not a coincidence that, let's say, I'll even go as simple as mosquito bites. Mosquito bites represent irritation, anger at something specific for each person. When I am at camp and there are mosquitoes out, my husband barely gets one bite. Meanwhile, I'm a feast for those things. They feast on me. It is because in my creator field, I am an energetic match. I have an emotional root cause of being angry about something that I'm not expressing, and that is reflected back to me by the mosquitoes biting me. And the more I work on expressing my anger or figuring out the root cause of that, the less mosquito bites I get. So we will test this all summer long and I will keep you posted. But it can be as simple as that in your creator field. The reason that things happen to us is because we have made ourselves an energetic match because of the holes in our creator field. Some people can get really upset with that and say, no, 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 that's not true. That's not true. That was not my fault. But I implore you to just keep an open mind with this, because think about the power that this gives you. If everything from the outside happens because of what is internally programmed first, and that can be in your creator field, that can be stuck energies, limiting beliefs, trapped emotions, all of those things, then that means that if all of that is in your doing, then you also have the power to change it. You've created it. That means you can change it. And that is empowerment. And that is why radical responsibility is massive. And I know it is super easy to blame people for making you feel this way or making you act a certain way. I get it. I get it 100%. I've done it for decades. Until I learned this, that was my go-to. My go-to was blame. Well, I wouldn't have done this if he didn't say that. Well, I wouldn't have done this if she didn't act that way towards me. This concept was a game changer for me because instead of looking at people as villains and bad guys in my life, seeing people as bad as opposed to good, everyone became purposeful and everyone became good. Even the people that treat me horribly, because those people, whether I know them or not, it could be someone that drove by and flipped me off for no reason, or it could be someone I know and love in my life. Regardless of who they are, they're not a villain. They're my biggest teachers. When you look at it from that perspective, one, it dissipates some of that anger. It takes away the blame so that you can really sit in situations and learn from them. Because our villains are not villains in our life. They are our greatest teachers. They are our greatest coaches. They are there to reflect back to us something that our higher self and source wants us to learn. We are here on this earth to learn certain lessons. The people that drive us the most insane, the people that get under our skin the most, the people that treat us horribly are there to reflect to us where we have holes in our creator field, are there to reflect to us things we need to improve on. And it's really uncomfortable to sit in that because it's a hell of a lot easier to be mad, and it's way easier to blame people than to stop and look at ourselves and look at our creator field and fix those holes. But if you really consider it, the only thing we have control over is us. So if we can go ahead and fix our creator field, if we can go ahead and recognize those reflections and take radical responsibility, then we have the power to change that. But it starts with us, always. Just like self-image does, just like self-love does. We cannot outsource these things. Everything is an internal job. I also don't want you guys to think that radical responsibility is saying everything's my fault, everything bad is my fault. What radical responsibility is really saying is that everything in my life is showing me something about my energy, my beliefs, my patterns that I carry. And because I helped create that, I now have the power to create a new one. So it's not about blame, it's about freedom and empowerment. And what I'm noticing lately, when I take an intuitive look at the world in general, people are really, really struggling to take radical responsibility because it's hard, it's triggering, it's super uncomfortable, and it's a ton of work. It's not for the faint-hearted. But when we embrace this concept of radical responsibility, that's when some serious growth and evolution happens. And I know because I experience it, I see it in people who I love that I teach this concept to, that when they take radical responsibility, it dissipates the explosive emotions and it fixes the holes in our creator field. When it fixes the holes in our creator field, then we live a happier, healthier life. But I am seeing it everywhere. People are struggling to take radical responsibility. It is why this world is so divisive. It is why this world is so explosive right now. And I know that can be really hard to hear, but if you really think about it, if we all took a minute to take radical responsibility, think of how different the world would be. I know for me, when I've struggled with radical responsibility, my husband is a big reflector for me, huge reflector. He's one of my biggest teachers. And that can be really difficult sometimes. I remember, and I think I even put this on as an Instagram story. I remember feeling like he wasn't listening to me and he wasn't prioritizing me. And instead of picking a fight and looking at him and going, you don't listen. Am I not a priority to you? Instead of doing that, which I probably would have in the past and totally did in the past, instead of doing that, knowing this concept now, I stopped and went, okay, I feel like he's not prioritizing me. I feel like he's not listening to me. That is how I'm feeling. Where in my life am I treating myself that way? Where in my life am I feeling that way? And at the time, I was ignoring my passion hobby area of life. I made no time for any hobbies. In fact, I still haven't till this day, you guys. I've not made time for my passion hobbies, and it continues to reflect back. Again, that's a whole thing in my creator field that I am putting out, and it's getting reflected back. Knowing full well, knowing this concept, it is still hard for me to take a minute to practice my piano, to sit down and just play, even though I know that's what I want to do. Like, oh, I don't have the time. I'm so busy. And yet these reflections keep reflecting. And that's when I say this is a really hard concept to master. Understanding it and learning it is great, but then putting it into action can be hella hard. In this specific week of time, when I really felt like he wasn't prioritizing me, he wasn't listening to me. I wasn't listening to myself because I needed to rest more. I was go, 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 go too much in the vocation area of life and not even taking a second to breathe. Or when I thought I was taking a second to breathe and I was like, no, I sat down and watched a show. My brain was not relaxed. I was thinking about the next thing I needed to do. And I was ignoring my passion hobby area. which is apparently one of my favorite pastimes. So instead of getting mad at my husband because I felt he wasn't listening to me and I felt that he wasn't prioritizing me, I fully realized that he was just reflecting to me how I felt about myself. When I did that, and when I took a minute and I took time to really sit with me and figure out where it came from inside me, the hole in my creator field, completely avoided an argument because I knew exactly where it came from. Because here's the thing, we get reflections that bring something to our attention, but wherever the reflection comes from, so for example, in the family or romantic area of life, wherever the reflection comes from is not the source, the root of that feeling. So I was feeling like my family, my husband was not listening to me. He was not prioritizing me. That's not where it came from though. It came from me not prioritizing me in vocation area of life and in passion hobby area of life. That's an important concept to understand too. The other thing too is if I have someone in my life who I feel is treating me poorly, or I feel has done me wrong, or I feel is ignoring me and has hurt my feelings, it is very easy to get stuck into that emotional blame game. But instead, what I do is take radical responsibility and go, okay, this person is reflecting to me how I am feeling. Where in my life am I treating myself that way? Where in my life am I ignoring myself? Where in my life am I hurting myself? And I know where I'm ignoring myself. It's passion hobby. Even though 3 months ago it was reflected to me, I totally learned it. It's still reflecting back to me. One day I'm going to get my butt in gear, you guys, and I'm going to do something about it. Just not sure when, because I'm stubborn. But remember, self-image, stubbornness is really a great quality too. So woo woo, go me. In vocation, I was feeling very stuck. I was feeling very stagnant, and I was feeling very unfulfilled the last few years of teaching. If I had known this concept, because this was a hole in my creator field, I would have stopped and said, okay, where in my life was I feeling stuck, unfulfilled, and stagnant? I didn't know that at the time. So I thought my choice was to make a different choice, choose a different career path. I was either going to stay in teaching for 15 more years or do something different. Now, I'm very grateful that I'm doing something different, but I also very much miss certain aspects of teaching. I loved working with that population. I loved certain parts. The burnout was real, but again, the burnout was a reflection. If I had known this, I could have handled those things. And then when I made the decision to leave education, if I had made the decision to leave education, it would have come from a neutral place as opposed to coming from an emotional place due to the holes in my creator field. Does that make sense? It's okay to make these big decisions, but sometimes we make these decisions without taking radical responsibility for how we feel, looking into the holes in our creator field, fixing, neutralizing, filling them, and then going, okay, now do I still want to make that choice? That's the major difference. I have a friend who struggles in the area of finances, and not that she doesn't have them. Her husband has a job where they're financially comfortable, but she has these holes in her creator field that really associate her financial well-being with her worth. And so how that gets reflected back to her is she doesn't feel right spending the money because it's not quote unquote her money. Even though her husband's like, I don't care. What's mine is yours. We're married. We've been married for a while now. But in her mind, there is a sense of guilt because she didn't make that money and isn't making as much money now in what she's doing as she did before. And so there's this guilt of spending someone else's money. Inside, there's a hole in her creator field where she's like, that's not my money. I can't spend that. And that has nothing to do with money. It has everything to do with what she perceives as worthy and the actions she thinks she has to take that make her feel worthy. When in reality, she's worthy simply because she's here. Self-worth is a whole rabbit hole we can go down because we're all worthy simply by being here. We don't have to do anything to prove our worth. Source, God, universe, whatever you want to say, put us here for a reason. That's what makes us worthy. So then how that gets mirrored back, the hole in her creator field is I'm not worthy. And that is an emotional root cause. How that gets mirrored back is in finances. She doesn't feel worthy to spend money because it didn't come directly from her. She feels guilty. For me, I didn't know this concept of radical responsibility, especially in my mid early 20s. In my mid 20s, when I got slammed with IBS, I mean, it was out of nowhere. I didn't understand emotional root causes. I didn't know and understand that. Had I understood that, I would have understood why it was happening, and I would have shifted the emotional root cause, which would have physically have helped me heal. I would have released the energies that were causing the irritable bowel syndrome, and man, would life have been better if I just figured that out earlier. But I'm grateful for the path because it led me to where I am today and helping people in the way I do today. I had the same experience with the Barrett's esophagus that I recently got diagnosed with. For those of you that don't know, I had a colonoscopy, endoscopy in January of this year. And normally I don't do those things, but when I intuitively looked in, I was a high match to get that done. And here's why. I finally knew why. And this is the blessing of intuition, because you can just trust, even though your human brain doesn't understand, your higher self will never lead you astray. So I get the colonoscopy, everything's fine there. I get the endoscopy. They wanted to check for celiac because I have gluten insensitivity. It's not celiac, turns out. But what they found was I had a hiatal hernia. I have Barrett's esophagus, which is when the lining of your esophagus changes and the cells almost mimic your colon. And it's from when you've had acid come up too much, too often. When it does that, the cells change to accommodate. And then I have a closing of my esophagus. The ring is getting narrower. And so it makes it difficult to swallow, which, sidebar guys, I always wondered why I would take pills and they would go down the wrong way. And I was like, oh, that is gnarly. I just thought that was normal. Apparently not. Apparently not. What I learned was, one, I wasn't paying attention to my physical symptoms whatsoever. And two, now that I knew when I got that diagnosis, if this was me in my mid 20s, I would have been devastated. I would have been beside myself. But instead, when I got that diagnosis, I was like, oh shit. What is the emotional root cause? Let's narrow that down. Which it is anger about not feeling like you can express your emotions, and then intuitively look at, what do I need to do to fix this? And so now I make sure to do somatic work. I'm doing what I need to do to express my emotions. I'm making sure if I'm angry, I say it, whether it's someone's around or not. Say it, scream it, punch it, journal it, angry letter it, whatever I need to do, because that is an emotion that I didn't really learn how to express properly. And so now that's manifested in a physical way. So that I took radical responsibility for. There was a time, remember when I talked to you guys about how I was super burnt out with teaching and all the doctors were like, you're good. Your labs are great. That nausea you're feeling in the morning, don't know, but your labs are good. You can't get through a full workday without needing to fall asleep. You're fine. Oh, you can't get through a 30-minute workout that you used to crush just a month ago? Listen, your labs are good. I'm not sure what you're complaining about. You remember that whole situation? Well, I ended up going to an integrative doctor who was a thyroid specialist because I knew there was genetic thyroid stuff going on in my family. Again, this is before I understood the emotional root cause of things and to look for that first. But anyway, he put me on a restricted diet. He wanted to pull all these things out to see if it would lower my antibodies because I was experiencing Hashimoto's symptoms. He wanted me to take out gluten, dairy, corn, soy, pork. Gosh, there were so many other things. I can't even remember now. And I was pissed because I had just spent, at this point, 10 years getting comfortable with certain foods again, eating a certain amount again. Because remember, I have a history of an eating disorder. And here is this doctor saying, no, 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 you can't have this, and this. I was livid. I was livid. But I didn't understand the concept of radical responsibility. Had I known, I would have looked in and said, okay, why am I experiencing these symptoms? I would have looked for the emotional root cause of the symptoms. What does the nausea represent? What does the fatigue represent? And then I would have intuitively looked in. Do I actually need to restrict these foods? Is anything going to come of that? Because when I restricted the foods, years later when I tried to reintroduce them, I had reactions. So now it's been a learning curve of trying to slowly reintroduce certain things, slowly reintroduce dairy once a week. Now I can finally have eggs as long as they're farm fresh eggs. I didn't understand the concept of radical responsibility. I just got mad and was pissed at the world. I was really angry for a long time because I'm like, how is this fair? I've finally done all the work, or so I thought I'd done all the work, to get to a place where I'm comfortable with foods, and now you're telling me that I have to go back to restricting? That's not good for this mind. So there were so many, I mean, I could go on and on about times in my life when I did not take radical responsibility because I did not understand the concept. It was just easier to be mad. It was just easier to blame other people. It's kind of like if you go to the movies and you have the movie projector and it's playing this movie, and the movie is your life, right? You're in the movie theater, it's playing the movie is your life, and you don't like what it's playing. So you yell at the screen, you scream, you throw popcorn at it, you get mad at the villain, you wish the story was different, but none of it changes the movie. The movie's still playing, regardless of you yelling, regardless of you blaming and getting angry at the villain, regardless of you hating the story. Nothing changes. What you have to do is go back to that projector, take the film off, put a new one on. The projector is your creator field. And all it is doing is projecting out what is programmed in. The people in your life, the situations you repeatedly experience, your patterns of success or of struggle, all of that, they're on the movie screen. They're reflecting what's being projected. And the projector is your creator field. So if your creator field contains the I'm not worthy limiting belief that's stuck in that field, that's what's going to project. And that's what's going to then get reflected back to you when you watch your life on that movie screen. Conversely, if your creator field is projecting I am magnetic, that's a whole different story. That's going to show a whole different life, a whole different bunch of people, places, experiences that are going to reflect that back to you. Radical responsibility means you stop fighting the screen. You stop getting mad at the screen. You stop yelling at the screen or getting mad at the villain. And you change the damn reel. You go back on the projector and you change it. That is empowerment. That is what you want to see in life. That is how you create a life that you truly want. You start fixing your creator field from the inside. So, for example, now, like I was telling you with my husband, when I have an argument with him, I don't well, I shouldn't say when I have an argument with him. When I get upset with him, if I can catch it. Sometimes I can't. I'm human, always a work in progress. But if I can catch it, I don't engage. I will take a minute to, one, somatically get the emotion out, whether that's crying. My go-to is crying. Happy, sad, mad, excited, see somebody else cry. I cry, I mean, it's just waterworks. So that could be one way I'd let it out. If I'm angry, I punch a pillow, scream in a pillow, write an angry letter, journal it out. I get the emotion out first somatically as best I can. And then I stop and I take time to reflect on what's going on. How am I feeling? I'm not asking myself, how is my husband treating me? I'm not asking myself about his actions. I'm asking myself, how did I feel when this happened? Constantly focused on my feeling. Those are our biggest teachers because the feeling is what's being reflected back. Not what he said, not what he did, but how did it make me feel? That's the lesson I need to learn. So then I take time to look at that and I go, how did I feel when he said this or did this? And then I go, okay, where in my life am I feeling this way? Where in my life am I doing this to myself? 10 times out of 10, there is a part of me in my creator field, there's a hole where I am doing that to myself. That is why he is reflecting that back to me. That is why the circumstance is coming up that is going to point out to me how I feel. It's my higher self saying, girl, pay attention. And when I do that, and when I catch myself and have that moment where I can stop and reflect and take radical responsibility, it avoids an argument. And then when I do talk to my husband about whatever happened, if I choose to still do that, if I still need to, it comes from a more neutral place where I feel calmer about it. Then in that conversation, I take ownership and say, I understand that part of this is me. When I do that, that's a whole other conversation because he's not feeling attacked. He's not feeling like he did something terribly wrong. If it's a step I need to take to help me move on, I do that. Sometimes I don't need to do that. That has significantly changed my marriage in the most amazing ways because I take radical responsibility for drop down, drag out fights. And not to say I'm perfect, guys, because there are times when my human will just human and I'll lose my shit. We'll get into it. But Still, afterwards, I sit with it and go, okay, how was I feeling? Where am I treating myself that way? And I shift that. And if I don't, then it's going to keep getting reflected back to me unless I take radical responsibility. This whole concept is so empowering. I cannot say that enough. I cannot convince you enough of that. And some people are like, oh, but that lets your husband off the hook. No, it doesn't. No, it doesn't. Because he's still got his stuff that he's dealing with, whatever he needs to figure out in his own path in life. It's not letting him off the hook. It's teaching me and empowering me to figure my stuff out. So then that doesn't get reflected back again. And it often doesn't. I used to feel incredibly unappreciated with all the things I do. There are things that I do in this house that he has no idea. Just like there are things that he does in our relationship that I have no idea. We both have our strengths and weaknesses. And I know mine. And you guys know my compulsive brain. I like efficiency, so I get shit done quickly. I'm on the ball in certain things in this house. And that's not tooting my own horn. That just is what it is. That's where I shine. He shines better at bills and things like that. That's more his brain. So for me, I was feeling really underappreciated. And that's not to say he wasn't appreciating me, but before I understood radical responsibility, I would get so upset and be like, I just did all of this stuff for us and you didn't even say thank you. And he's like, oh, I didn't know I had to. I do appreciate you, but I'll do better at saying it. And then he wouldn't do better at saying it more often until I realized the reason that happened is because I wasn't doing better at appreciating myself in a different area of life. It was on me. He was just reflecting the fact that I was not taking radical responsibility for appreciating me. Does he consciously know he's reflecting it? No, he doesn't. But when I started to think, okay, this is a pattern that's not shifting, I released energies related to it. I had a lot of limiting beliefs and negative programs and belief code that had to do with me associating my worth with productivity. I'm still kind of releasing them to this day, but it's gotten a lot better. Whole lot better. Whoa, let me tell you, the shifts are insane. But I really used to think that I would have to be productive in order to feel worthy. I like being productive, but I would do it even when my body was begging for rest, or I would do it even when I wanted to just sit and read my book for an hour. I would push, 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 get everything done around the house, get everything done outside the house, really ignoring my needs. And then I wouldn't appreciate my hard work. I just was doing it because I needed to feel worthy. So I released a lot of those energies too, which also helped me take radical responsibility because it's almost like this subconscious programming that I had. When I toggled that filter off, that my productivity was associated with my worth, I was able to access that radical responsibility a little bit easier, as opposed to just rejecting it. Because like I told you guys, this can be triggering. This triggered the hell out of me when I first learned it. And a lot of that was just because of the limiting beliefs and negative programs that I had to release through my own energy work. Once I did that, I was able to connect more with, okay, why is this pattern happening? Where in my life do I feel like I'm taking myself for granted? Plot twist, it was every area of life. Just absolutely. It was rampant, people. It was rampant in every area of life. When I started to appreciate what I was doing for myself, when I started to appreciate the hard work and vocation, when I started to appreciate the hard work physically, when I started to appreciate how emotionally I'm putting in the work to evolve and grow, when I started to appreciate all of the things, he starts to naturally appreciate me and mirror it back. I fixed that hole in my creator field. I took the radical responsibility to do that. And when I did that, even just yesterday, he stopped me and I wasn't asking for it. It wasn't on my radar. I didn't need it because I fulfill that on my own. When I feel that hole, I appreciate myself. I don't take myself for granted now. And what I've noticed is like yesterday, we're getting dinner and he stops me and was like, thank you so much for everything you do around here. And listed all of these things that he noticed that I did. And it was so nice. I didn't need it, but it was nice that he did that. He's just mirroring back. But me taking radical responsibility was that first step to fixing that. I know so many people who feel defeated in their jobs. They feel like they're not valued. They feel unheard. A lot of it is my teacher friends. They feel so distraught, really, because you go to school for at least 6 years. You have to go for 6 years. You have to get your master's. And then you're questioned and doubted, and it's a real blow. You put your heart and soul into this job that takes all of your energy. It leaves minimal left for people at home. It really does. And when you get treated poorly, it can really be disheartening. And I know that's how I felt the last few years in education, especially. I felt not heard and I felt unfulfilled. But like I explained to you guys before, had I understood this concept of radical responsibility, I could have stopped and said, where am I not listening to myself? Where do I not value myself? Because that's how I feel. Because here's the thing, no one can make you feel a certain way that you don't already feel inside. If you ever have that thought of, oh, they made me feel so worthless, invisible, whatever it might be, they're only reflecting to you how you feel inside. The only thing you can control is changing how you feel inside, whether that's through the energy work or looking at the reflections and asking those questions. How did it make you feel? Where in your life are you feeling this way? All of those things. That's what you can control. And that's what I wish I'd done before I left teaching. Would I have probably still left teaching? Yeah. But I would have come from a more neutral place. And it would have saved me time and angst and sorrow when I did leave, because I felt so guilty for doing something wrong when I wasn't doing anything wrong. This whole concept of radical responsibility, you guys, is a game changer. It is a life changing thing. And it's not letting people off the hook. It's really not. But it's also taking ownership of your part and how you're feeling and how people are treating you and everything that happens in your life. So if this is triggering for you, I guarantee you are meant to hear this. If you were pulled to this, I guarantee you were meant to hear this for either you or someone you know. And if you know of someone who you feel could benefit from understanding this concept, please send this to them. I totally get the resistance you're going to have. I get the discomfort that it's going to cause. I get the ego that's going to flare up. It all happened to me and sometimes still does. It just doesn't happen as often. And the more I take radical responsibility, and then the more I see it playing out in my life in positive ways, the better I feel, the better my relationships, circumstances, situations, and events are in my life. I can't deny that. I can't. The proof is right there in my own life. And when it's that obvious, I can't ignore that. When I intuitively looked in to see who needed to hear this and what you guys needed to hear for this week, this tested at 99% out of 100. The world really needs to understand this concept. If we understood this concept, life would be so different. Well, minus dark force energy and other circumstances too. But this is a game changer. It's a tough concept to understand, to practice, to implement. And I'm really only scratching the surface. This is just the tip of the iceberg of radical responsibility, but you got to start somewhere. And so let's start basic with just understanding what it is. The way I started was I tried to understand what it was, and I tried to see where in my life I could implement it. So when I was stuck in traffic, instead of getting mad, or if someone cut me off, if my first reaction was to get mad, I would stop and go, oh, okay. Take radical responsibility. How am I feeling right now? How did I just feel? Oh, I felt ignored. Or, oh, I felt taken advantage of. Well, where in my life am I treating myself that way? And I started there. The minimal, minuscule baby step type things. That way, when I had an argument with my husband or I had a big event in my life that was really jarring or upsetting, I had practiced enough where I could then apply it to the bigger things. Just got to take baby steps. And we're never perfect. This is something that I'm always going to be working on. But it's something that changed my life significantly. And I don't want you guys to struggle or suffer in the way I did. If you can learn this, and you will learn this faster than I did, I just know you will. Intuitively, when I look in, you will. If you learn this faster than I did, you're going to live a happier, healthier life. Thank you for joining me. If you guys have any questions, let me know, because I know this can be a confusing topic and I know that questions can come up. We might maybe dive into this in a webinar. I think that might be a good one where you guys can bring your questions. If you're someone who wants to be part of the webinar, I ask that you sign up for my newsletter. I'll put my website in the show notes. You scroll down on the homepage, you scroll down to where it says join the newsletter. It's like a little tan section. Put in your email. And then that way you can stay up to date on the webinars that are going to happen. You can see what topics work for you. I will record them in case you can't make them. Webinars are really for anyone who wants to dig deeper, learn faster, learn more. And obviously those are complimentary. That's something that I just want to do to help people. Thank you guys for joining me. Thank you for your patience. Thank you for your time. Thank you for being open minded. And if you were triggered, just sit with it. Just sit with it and maybe re listen and see what you think the second or third time. All right, everybody. I will see you next week. Love you. Bye.